Hey everybody, this is Debbie at B.R.A.T Women's Riding Academy, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about addressing some questions that I recently had gotten from some potential students of mine. So as many of you know, I had discontinued my new rider program to the extent that I supply the training motorcycles. So historically, as you know, B.R.A.T Women's Riding Academy, which was formerly Carolina Cruisin', used to supply training motorcycles for you to learn on, and I would trail them to the training site and you didn't require a motorcycle. And as you know, about last year, about mid-season, I went ahead and decided to discontinue that portion, and I was still offering the new rider training program, but I made some changes. So with that information, I do want to share a little more detail on that for anyone who has missed it, because I kind of have explained in the past, but it's a while ago now, so I'm more than happy to kind of talk about it again. But you know what? It's almost 60 degrees today, this beautiful day at the end of January, and I don't want to waste any time just talking, so why don't we go for a ride? And while I'm riding, I'll talk to you a little bit about why I made those changes. So come on, let's go. Everybody, I am on the bike. I'm on my way. It is a little later in the afternoon than I intended on getting out to ride today. I've been battling a cold, and I feel like I've had it forever. So I didn't feel great this morning, but like I said, this day is too beautiful. According to the display on my dashboard, temperature is 61, just went up to 62. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm not quite sure it's 62, but it's up there. It's close. It's very close. So we are on one of my favorite roads. This is right by my house. I mean, I'm like not even 5 minutes away from my house right now. This is a road called 902, and it goes a little ways, and it's just a beautiful scenic route. For when I just want to get out, take a quick ride. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about why I discontinued supplying training motorcycles. And I honestly have had quite a few women come to me over the last, almost, it's not really quite a year. I think I made the decision, I think last July is when I sold off my last training bike. And actually it was a bike I had just bought in March. But I sold it to a student who loved it, and that made me feel good because, she's been riding it and reporting back to me and doing really well with it. So that makes me happy, at least. So the reason that I got rid of the training motorcycles, well, first of all, let me talk about the reasons why I got the training motorcycles. Because initially when I began my business, my main mission was helping women who had taken the MSF and passed it. And for those of you who don't know what the MSF is the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. And they're the organization that provides the basic rider course, and it's basically the endorsement waiver. So if you sign up for the MSF basic rider course, that means that you don't have to go to DMV and take the road test with them and one of their evaluators. It is a course that allows you to learn how to ride, and then at the end of the weekend, because it's usually like a 3-day course, I believe it normally starts, and I know that it can differ depending on the provider who's offering the course, because I think Harley actually makes it a little bit longer. But here in North Carolina, you can either take it with Harley or with a DM with one of the community colleges. And I know at the community college, it's usually a Friday night, and then Saturday and Sunday, you're out on the range learning how to ride. And then on Sunday, you take the skills test with a evaluator. Sorry, I'm just coming into an area that I know has a lot of deer, and I just like to give a little bit of a horn beep. And after I cross this river, I'll do it again, just in case there's any deer thinking about coming on the road. I'm letting them know, don't even think about it. So anyway, yeah, the class allows you to learn and then take the skills test, and then at the end of the weekend you get a certificate, and you can take that certificate to DMV, and they will turn that into a motorcycle endorsement for you. And then of course, you know, you'll get a new license, and on your license there's a spot on everybody's license that says endorsement. And you know, some that, like if you're a commercial truck driver, you'll have, you know, whatever class, you know, truck you're allowed to drive. But for us motorcyclists, that endorsement, you'll have an M on your license. So my school was initially started to work with that woman rider who passed the class, who maybe needed some support in helping her find a motorcycle that she wanted to purchase, helping her even understand, you know, the differences between some of the options that were out there, you know, like carbureted versus fuel injected, the different drives, like, you know, a chain drive or a belt drive or a shaft drive, and, you know, whether or not she was looking to get an adventure motorcycle or a sport bike or a cruiser. And so I was looking to be an aid and help women with some of those questions that they had, and then to help them get on the road. Now, men don't seem to have this problem as much, but a lot of women that I was meeting, they would take that course, they would pass it, and then they would not do anything with it because, you know, they didn't have anyone to help them pick out a bike, or if they did get a bike, they didn't know anyone who rode, and they felt intimidated to just get out on their own. Because when you take the MSF class, even if you pass it, that MSF is just a start. You are not a fully proficient motorcyclist. You are just starting out. And when you take that class, you're riding that motorcycle in a parking lot. You're never getting above second gear, I don't believe. Maybe you get into third, but I don't think you do. And you're not dealing with navigating traffic and road hazards and just operating your bike in, you know, in the road, in traffic situations. So, you know, when you're a new rider and you're kind of learning, you know, the clutch and your throttle, and you're learning, you know, how to use your front brake versus, you know, your back brake, and all that kind of stuff, it's a lot. It's a lot of things to learn, and it's a lot of things to pay attention to. And really what it takes is, you know, kind of building a lot of that muscle memory so that you become really, really comfortable with the controls of the motorcycle and the motorcycle steering as well. You know, I mean, we want to get really comfortable. And in the meantime, obviously I'm on back roads right now, so I'm not really encountering a lot of traffic. But, you know, there's other times I'm on the road, I'm on the highways, I'm on the main vein roads with traffic and traffic lights and intersections. You know, and so that's a whole different ballgame. So initially my goal was to kind of help those women and be like a coach to them and say, listen, come along with me and I'll mentor you and I'll help coach you. And, you know, sometimes just the act of having an experienced motorcyclist along riding with you while you're riding is enough to cut a lot of anxieties.
I have had women that I work with who tell me that, one of the reasons they don't take their bike out on their own, that they're afraid to take it out on their own, is because, well, what if I drop it? What if I'm making a turn and I drop it? Who's going to help me pick it up? So, it's okay to have those fears, and it's okay to feel that way, but we really, need to work at overcoming those. Part of being a Moto Brat, which was one of the reasons I rebranded my business, was because it's really important to be brave, resilient, adventurous, and tenacious, and to really build those skills. And having those skills does not mean that there'll be times where you're not fearful. I think as humans, there's times that we're always fearful. Like, for some reason, no matter how many times I ride this curve right here, I'm fearful. I don't know why. And I ride a lot tighter curves than that. No, I'm really kidding. That curve does scare me a little bit. I don't know why. Anyway, but it doesn't stop me from doing it. And I've probably ridden this road, at least 100 times, if not more. So being brave, resilient, adventurous, and tenacious is being all those things in spite of fear. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. And as we do that more and more, we kind of build up our fear resistance, and we find that we can do more things and enjoy them better as well. So, in that case, if you're afraid of going out because, what if you drop your bike when you're going around a corner and then there's nobody there to help you pick it up? Well, a couple of things. First of all, that's a really good reason to say, well, what am I fearful of, and how can I combat that? And I did a video not long ago about where I talked about combating fear. It's kind of identifying the things that we're fearful of, and then finding ways to, get around that and not be fearful of those things. So if you're afraid of dropping your bike, then I say practice putting your motorcycle down on Sorry, I just always like to pay attention in an intersection, make sure everybody is stopping. Anyway, if that is something you're afraid of, then put your motorcycle down. I mean, first come talk to me, and I'll send you a great video on, that teaches you how to pick up your motorcycle if you drop it. The other thing to do is to make sure, I'll see if I can get those, but right there, crash bars. Because when you have crash bars on your motorcycle, it will not go all the way on its side. And if it's not all the way on its side, it is a hell of a lot easier to pick it up. So first off, make sure you have crash bars. And not only do they serve the purpose of not letting your motorcycle lay all the way on the side, but they'll also protect your motorcycle from getting damaged if it gets dropped. Let me get back to my main point, but anyway, I kind of digress. So that was the main purpose of my business, was to kind of help women and shepherd them from the MSF class out onto the road. And then I started getting calls from women who were telling me that they wanted to take the MSF class, but they were intimidated because they had never ridden a motorcycle ever. And they wanted to know, was there something available to them that would, that could allow them to try it out one-on-one with somebody, learn some of the basics. And so, of course, oddly enough, before that even happened, I did come across a really good buy on a little Suzuki GZ250, and it was a really good price, so I bought it. And I didn't really know at the time that I was going to kind of make that an option, but I had a friend's wife who was actually riding it, and I was helping her to learn. She had actually taken the MSF class, passed it, and had not bought a motorcycle yet, so she was coming over on the weekends to ride my GZ250 with me. And then I said, hey, maybe there's a need for this, So I started, kind of then marketing also to people that wanted to take the MSF but felt intimidated because they had no prior experience. And then I started getting another batch of women who did take the MSF and either were asked to leave or they didn't pass. And then they were calling me saying, I'd like to get a little bit more practice before I go back and take the class. So that then became the majority of my business. And of course, I was doing slow maneuver training for experienced riders to help them become ever more proficient. But the biggest sector of my business was brand new riders wanting to get some experience before they took the class. And I did that for 2.5 seasons. And I wound up with, a fleet. I call it a fleet. I like to say that. Makes me sound important. Just kidding. But, I had 3 training motorcycles at that point. And I was sometimes doing lessons with, 2 women at a time. My trailer really could only fit 2 motorcycles. So I would bring 2 bikes to the lesson and, let me just watch this guy. All right. So I'd bring my 2 bikes, so it would either be one-on-one or I would work, one-on-2, whatever. And what I saw happening, though, was women were coming back to me over and over, which I think was great. But, it was good for business, but I wasn't in it just for the money. I was in it to help people. I was in it to empower women and inspire them, and help to motivate them and help them be proficient and confident riders. And I had quite a few women who came back, and they were so intimidated. They got themselves so worked up over the MSF course that they kept coming to me and feeling like they just needed to know a little more and a little more and a little more. And I would say to them, look, go take the class. Go take the class, get yourself a motorcycle, and then I will work with you again. But you're not going to achieve anything by continuing to come back to me over and over and take private lessons and rely on my training motorcycles. Because once you actually get your motorcycle, it's not going to feel like these training motorcycles anyway. It's going to have a different feel. So then I started using that 650, and I sold off all the 250s. But again, I had this moral issue, was that I didn't really feel like I was helping women. Because then I would have women who would again, that they would take the MSF and then want to come back to me for lessons, which is great. But they wanted to use my training motorcycles. And I felt that it was enabling them. So instead of encouraging them to go buy their own motorcycle and start learning, they wanted to keep coming back and using my training motorcycle until somehow they felt, proficient enough or confident enough to now go out and buy their own motorcycle and get riding. But that was not ever going to do it for them, because in order to learn how to ride a motorcycle, you need to ride a motorcycle. You need to be doing it frequently. Coming and taking a 2-hour lesson with me, once every couple of months, that's not going to help you become a proficient and experienced motorcyclist. You need to get your own bike, and you need to get practicing and get riding as often as possible. And so, while I thought more and more about it, I really, really felt that the best thing I could do to help and inspire other women was to sell off those training motorcycles and encourage women to sign up for the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course. And if they failed it, so what? You can go back and take it. And again, I've talked about this a lot too, is that if you went and took the class and you failed it, that's what we call feedback. And that would tell you all of the areas where maybe you need to work on a little bit harder or build more confidence and more skills. Now, I guess the hard part from there does come to this, where now you failed the class, you don't have a training motorcycle, and how are you going to practice, and how are you going to work on those skills and go back? And so I've thought a lot about that as well. And it comes around again every single time. Back to the same thing. And that is, you have to buy a motorcycle if you want to learn how to ride a motorcycle. And so I think the MSF course serves another function for you as well. And that function is for you to decide if over that weekend, regardless of whether you passed or failed the class, you're on a motorcycle enough during that weekend, and it's enough time to give you enough of a flavor to make you, figure out whether or not riding is really for you and it's really what you want to do. If you take that class and you're like, oh God, that was such an awful experience, and now I have to practice and I have to go back, and if it seems like a burden to you and it seems hard to you, and you're not excited by, okay, hey, I failed the class, but that was an awesome experience and I can't wait to go back and take it again. If you don't feel that way, then maybe motorcycling is not for you. If you don't leave that class feeling like you just did the coolest thing in the whole world, and you are excited and motivated, then maybe you need to reconsider what you think you want your passion to be. Maybe you do want to be out in the open air, but maybe two wheels isn't for you either. And that would be okay. There's no shame in that. A lot of women take the class and then realize that they would rather be on one of the Can-Am Spyders or the Riker or something. And there's a class for that. You don't have to take the two-wheeled motorcycle class to get your endorsement. You can take a class that just teaches you how to ride the Spider. And so maybe that's what you want to do. And there's, again, nothing wrong with that. Those are cool too. Pretty much in a nutshell, that is why I discontinued my new rider program where I supply the training motorcycles. Because I think that after you've taken the MSF, you need to make the decision whether or not you think you liked it enough to continue to learn. Because it's a journey. It's definitely a journey. It is not a one-time thing where you go and you learn. After 16 years of riding and lots of mileage under my belt and lots of long distance travel, including a 6,500 mile cross country trip, I can tell you that I am always learning. I learned so much on my cross country trip. I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you all the lessons that I learned, the things I didn't even know that I didn't know when it came to riding or long distance travel. And so it is definitely a journey. And there's still things that I know that I don't know that I want to learn and do better. And so if you really want to ride, I encourage you, take the class. Whatever happens, happens. If you fail the class, or for whatever reason you were asked to leave before the class ended, because that happens sometimes. I will say this again, I've said it so many times, but I'm going to keep reinforcing this. That is not failure. That is growth. That is learning. That is sucking at something because we're new at it. Imagine that a baby, every time they got up and tried to walk and they fell, if they gave up and were like, oh, that's it. I guess I'm just not meant to walk. I keep falling, so forget that. But no, a baby's instinct is to keep trying, because they have the drive and the motivation. They don't even know what failure is. That's a word they haven't even heard. So how cool is that when you think about it? That resilience, that's what that is. That is resilience. That resilience is an inborn trait that we are born with. It is an instinct that we have to not give up. It's only as we grow older and we start to develop self-doubt, however we do that, whether it's the critical words of a parent or friends or, whoever, that somewhere the lesson was not continued for us, that it's okay to not do something right and well, that it is okay to fail at something and have to work to get better. So I say, go take the class. If you fail it, you fail it. Don't get all in your head. Don't get down on yourself. Pay attention to what the instructors are telling you. Pay attention to the feedback. And go get your permit. Make an appointment with DMV. Whatever your local DMV, whatever their process is, follow it. And go and get the motorcycle permit manual, study it, and get your permit. Once you get your permit, you are free to ride a motorcycle. Now, it does differ state to state. I know when I became a licensed motorcyclist, I lived in New York, and I got my permit, and it really was not legal to ride without riding alongside a licensed motorcyclist. And so that did present some challenges, but I overcame them. And in North Carolina, I know that you can get your permit and you are free to ride. The limitations are you're not able to carry a passenger and you're not able to ride at night. But otherwise, you can get that motorcycle and you can get on the road. So I say, do it. Get your permit. Make the commitment to purchase a motorcycle. And I know they're expensive. I know it's a big purchase, but I mean, if you're not willing to put out the money to buy a motorcycle, then what are you doing taking a motorcycle class, right? You've got to buy a motorcycle. But I want to tell you that everybody gets so caught up. I see a lot of new riders all very caught up in that Harley motorcycle culture. And I'm here to tell you that you don't need a Harley Davidson motorcycle as your first motorcycle. You certainly don't need a brand new one. That I can tell you. I also don't believe that your first motorcycle should be your dream motorcycle. That to me is something that you should work towards, a reward. I have never owned a Harley. I have never desired to own a Harley. I have always ridden Hondas and Suzukis. I had a Kawasaki for a very short time, was not a fan of the Kawasaki Vulcan, and didn't have it very long. But I've always ridden Japanese bikes, and I love them. I loved my Suzukis. I still have my Suzuki Boulevard. I love that bike. Took that thing cross country, and it was an amazing motorcycle. But I always wanted an Indian motorcycle. That was my dream since I was a little girl. And I know Indian has been in and out of production. And I was so happy when Polaris bought the name and brought them back. And so it took me 16 years, but I finally have my Indian motorcycle. So don't be in a rush to have to get into that scene just because, Harley is a status symbol and it is a culture, and I understand the draw to it. I definitely do understand that. But right now you're focused on learning, not focusing on showing off to others and being a status symbol. So if you were to go buy a used Honda or a used Yamaha or even a used Suzuki, reach out to me. I can talk you through some of those really good starter motorcycles that are going to run you about $2,500, maybe $3,000. But for between $2,500 and $3,000, you can find yourself a really good starter motorcycle. It's going to be an older one. It'll be, an early 2000 most likely. But those motorcycles, as long as they were taken care of, those bikes run forever. Okay, so you don't have to worry about You don't have to worry about, you know, the fact that it's older. And here's one thing more I want to say about an older motorcycle. If you're buying a 20-year-old motorcycle and the owner's like, hey, it's only got 1,500 miles on it, you're like, whoa, that's low mileage. That's like a brand new bike. That is not necessarily a good thing. Because what that tells me is that in 20 years, if that motorcycle only was ridden 1,500 or 2,000 miles, what was it doing all the rest of the time? It was sitting, collecting dust and corroding from the inside out. You know, and not that you can't, you know, if you know somebody who's handy, you know, it probably doesn't have any major issues, but you're gonna need to give it a good carb cleaning. It might need a carburetor rebuild, who knows? You'll have gaskets and other, you know, rubber parts in there that probably will need to be replaced because they've dried out and all that good stuff. So it's okay if you go to look at an old motorcycle that's new for you, and you know that bike's got 20,000 miles on it, which is still low for a 20-year-old motorcycle. Or if it's got 15,000 miles on it, those motorcycles can go a heck of a lot longer than that. Most of those motorcycles can easily probably go 100,000 miles or more. I know people that have really old Hondas and Suzukis and Yamahas. So you don't need to spend 5,000, 10,000, certainly not 20, 25. But, you don't need to spend that kind of money on a motorcycle. So make that investment, buy that motorcycle, call me up, and I will work with you. I will help you get that motorcycle to a parking lot. I'm not going to talk about the logistics here, but, I have methods of helping you out. So if you get your permit and you get that motorcycle, and then you want to do some new rider training in a parking lot with me, we will get your motorcycle to the parking lot that you want to work in. There's always ways, there's always workarounds, there's always a solution. So the moment that you start creating all these self-limiting beliefs and all these roadblocks around why you can't do this or that or the other thing, you need to sit down and you need to reframe and start writing it down, and then start going into solution mode. And again, like I said, call me and I will sit down and I will help you figure it out. Because I have wanted to do a lot of things in my life, and I am human, and I see roadblocks and I have self-limiting beliefs, but I have not ever let any of those stop me from doing exactly what I want to do and living exactly the life that I want to live. I have created this life, and I have not done it by not doing things because I'm afraid, and I have not done it by giving up and saying I can't do this or it's too hard. I don't say I can't. Those words do not escape my mouth. And I want you to try to learn to do that as well. Again, that's all the things that it means to be a moto brat. Brave, resilient, adventurous, and tenacious. So I hope this video has helped you and helped motivate you to make a new start and do something that you've never done. Because you have to remember, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you've always got. To change your life, you've got to be willing to do something different. And you've got to be willing to do something that scares you. So with that, I am going to enjoy the rest of my ride. Just checking to make sure I was still recording. Anyway, with that, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my ride, and I hope to see you out there on the road. And also, if you've made it this far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Bye!